things related to that. Yeah, recording. So this is me. My name is Kaylin Kappas, just like they noted. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an assistant director of admission at Willamette University down in Salem. Come check us out. Come visit us if you're interested. There will be a QR code on the last slide of my presentation if you'd like to scan it for more information or to connect with us in the future. So looking forward to making those connections if you're interested. Today, we're going to be talking about a couple different things. I'm going to be walking through the different sort of seasons of the year, of your senior year, and talking about what the major tasks you should be thinking about working on during each of those periods is, and also the key dates to keep in mind. And some of these are dates that are important no matter who a student is, and some are very specific to y'all in your school district, like the AP exams or particular college fairs that are happening in your area and things like that. So we'll touch on those. And then the final part of the presentation is just some last overarching tips that are helpful as you get into this process and thinking about getting started with the applications. So we'll begin, of course, with what's coming up next, summer. And there are a couple key tasks. You heard Ms. Strema speak on this a little bit. One of the big pieces of information to take in over summer is general information about all the schools that you might be hearing about, exploring, learning more about through research. So this can be through looking at different websites of schools, watching videos. I know that when my brother went through this process just a year or so ago, he really liked looking at social media, and YouTube videos is a little bit easier to digest than reading a bunch of content on a website. There will be college fairs happening throughout your area. And you can also go and visit a campus if that's accessible to you. Sometimes students ask me, what's the best time of year to visit a college campus? And there are lots of great times to visit a college campus. It kind of depends on what you're thinking regarding the process. Some students want to visit some places before they even apply, so they can kind of get an idea of, do I want to apply here? Other students would rather find out where they've been admitted in the spring and then visit those schools. If visiting isn't an option for you, especially for some schools that are farther away, don't feel like you're completely missing out on an opportunity. We know that that costs money, it costs time, people are busy. So there's a lot of other ways to connect with campuses as well, like talking to admission counselors or connecting with current students or doing virtual tours and things like that. All of this information gathering is really important as you start to create your list of schools that you might be interested in and learn more about them. The last thing you see on that bullet point is to ask questions about financial aid and scholarships. And I know that right now, as you're kind of maybe finishing up your junior year, it might seem like this is way too early to be thinking about all that, but this is actually a great time to start asking those questions, because the earlier you know which schools are financially accessible for your family, the more information you'll have when building that list. You don't want to be in a situation where you found your dream school, you know, it's spring, you've gotten in, you're so excited, and then you find out that they actually don't offer the financial aid that you're looking for. So asking those questions early, gathering as much information as possible, especially over this summer and into the fall, that can really prepare you for success. As you build your list of schools, it's important to have a range of different opportunities on there. I wrote confident, likely, and reaches. You may have heard this terminology before, but it's the idea that we want to make sure that we have a wide range of schools, that some of which you're pretty confident that you'll be admitted to, some that you think are likely you'll be admitted to, and some that might feel more like a big dream, but still put that on there. Dream big. We want you to have those aspirations. And so you can build that list over summer. Now, this list doesn't necessarily mean these are exactly the schools that I'm going to apply to. This summer, it's about collecting information. You don't have to narrow it down that much, but gather the list of schools that you feel are important, that catch your attention, that you want to learn more about, and then do further research on that as well. As you make this list, it's important to also note the application requirements that each of these interesting schools requires, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're 2 weeks away from a deadline and then you realize, oh no, this school requires the SAT or requires an interview that I haven't done yet, or requires an art portfolio or something like that. So when you're making this list, it can be helpful to put it in a spreadsheet or some other type of organization where you know what types of things you'll have to work on eventually, and you can start planning for that. The next bullet you see is studying for the SAT or ACT. That's a great example. It's a good idea to schedule your SAT or ACT if you do decide to take it. Not every school requires the SAT or ACT, which is why that research is important. But if one of the schools or a couple of the schools you're interested in does require it and you're interested in taking it, it's important to schedule that test at the latest December, because after that December mark, it is kind of a toss-up as to whether the schools you're applying to will receive that score by the time that they have to make their admission decision. So there's a bunch of different times you can take those exams. I've listed several different months on the screen, but December is kind of the latest time I would recommend doing it, just to make sure that your score can actually make it to the reviewers by the time you submit your application. And then the last two bullets on there are brainstorming college essay ideas. I'm sure that you have heard about the college essay or essays. It is a huge part of this process. So using this summer to think about all of the things you want to share about yourself in an application. Maybe your favorite extracurricular, you've played soccer for many years, or an identity that's really important to you that you want to make sure colleges know about, or a way that you problem solve that is important, or a way you give back to your community, or a passion you're excited to explore further in college. You want to share all this cool stuff with colleges, and a bunch of different of those things can be turned into essays. So start that brainstorming work early, and then when you get an essay prompt, you already have a bunch of great ideas to draw from. And lastly, if you're an athlete and you're thinking about playing at the varsity level, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, certainly this summer, try to connect with the coaches at the schools you might be interested in. Some of you may already have made those connections. Some recruitment processes start during junior year, right? Or even before that. But at this point, there's no way for every coach to know about every single student in existence. So if you would like to be considered for recruitment, definitely reach out to those people this summer and try to make those connections happen so that they're at least aware that you're excited about that opportunity. So those are some of the tasks to think about over summer. If we think about key dates coming up, the last day of junior year is in just about a month. Woohoo! And then the Common Application opens on August 1st. Not every school uses the Common Application, but a lot of them do. So that's an important date to note. August 3rd is the CTCL College Fair in Portland. CTCL is the Colleges That Change Lives. It's a really great organization of small liberal arts schools. So if that is the kind of environment you're looking for, small class sizes, the chance to study in a variety of different areas, internship and research opportunities, hands-on learning, that kind of feel, then you might want to go to this fair to learn about some of the really wonderful options out there. There's going to be about 44 different schools present at that fair. And then the first day of senior year is on August 28th. Woo, crazy. Happy senior year. Mark that on the calendar. So that's a little bit about what to expect in summer. If we jump to fall, there's a whole new set of tasks to think about. First thing I'll mention is asking for recommendation letters early. Not every school will require a recommendation letter, not every college, but it is often the case that they will require a counselor's letter of recommendation, and sometimes they will require or suggest that you include letters from teachers. The earlier you ask those people to write these letters, the more time they'll have and the better letter they'll be able to submit. So definitely make those requests as early as you can. This is also the time to narrow down that list. I know I mentioned over summer, we're building the big list of all the things that sound interesting. Now we're bringing it down to about 5 to 15 schools. That's what I typically recommend. You want to have enough on your list that you have a couple different options, but you don't want to have so many that you're completely overwhelmed and it's like you have a whole job outside of class that's just applying to schools. So keeping it somewhere in that range can be a really good idea. And as you narrow down that list, keep track of when the deadlines are for these schools and which deadline you're going to aim for. A lot of schools offer several different deadlines to choose from, like early action, early decision, regular decision. And so think about when you would like to apply to each school and note that so that you know how your work's going to be spread out over your senior year. This is also a key time to brainstorm and revise your common application essay and any other essays you might have to write. The good thing about the Common App is that one essay will go to a bunch of different schools, but each school might have their own extra essay you need to write. So working on those during this time is key. Sometimes students say to me, as an admission counselor, like, how important is the essay piece? You know, it feels like grades would be more important than that. I would say still value that essay. The essay is the only part of the application where we hear about you and who you are in your voice. And so this is huge for us. This is our chance to see what you're all about, what your personality is, what you're excited about, what you're bringing to our campus. So taking time to really craft those pieces of writing are really key to showing your best self when you're presenting that application. I know some of you have probably heard of the FAFSA, Free Application for Federal Student Aid is what that stands for. And this is a document where you and your family can fill it out talking about your financial situation. The federal government will review it and determine if they can offer you need-based financial aid in the form of grants or student loans. So this document becomes available during this fall, during December is when it will become available. And so that is a great idea to fill that out. Many students are able to go to college because of the money they're receiving from FAFSA. And sometimes schools like Willamette, we offer need-based grants in general, but we can't consider students for that unless they've also submitted the FAFSA. So even if you think you won't get federal aid, I'd still recommend filling it out because some schools might be able to offer you school-based aid because of your submission. I'd also recommend you look into scholarships and opportunities like that outside of the FAFSA. Think about the schools you're applying to and see if they have special scholarships. At Willamette, we offer merit scholarships. We offer scholarships based on talent in the arts and sciences. So if you're really excited about environmental science or public health or theater, you can get up to $12,000 for that at Willamette. In the community, I mentioned the CTCL schools, those colleges that change lives on the previous slide. They offer scholarships that you can apply for. Anybody can apply for that. Or community, Portland organizations might be doing some scholarships. So think about those opportunities too, and make sure that you're not missing those deadlines either. The fall is another great time to connect with campuses. We've talked a lot about visiting campus, doing research online, attending college fairs. Another great way to connect with campuses is by reaching out to the representative from that school that you're interested in. I know schools all across the nation, the representatives, people in my position, we spend September and October traveling across the nation to meet you. So even if it's a school that you're thinking, I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to visit Washington, D.C. and see Georgetown. Well, that representative might be coming to Portland to do a college fair or to hold interviews or to come to your school and meet students and talk to them about what questions you have and what you want to learn more about. So see if any of the representatives from your school or from the schools you're interested in will be coming to your area, and use that opportunity to ask questions, maybe do an interview with them if they're offering it, and see if you can get connected with people back on campus. Maybe you want to do a Zoom meeting with a professor in the department you're interested in, or maybe you want to connect with a current student who also loves dance and they're involved with the student-run dance club or something like that. This is all more ways to gather information and make a good impression on the representative who might read your application as well. Of course, you're going to be applying at this time. That is the main part of fall is getting ready on those applications. Even if you're not applying early to a particular institution, you still should be working on applications because you don't want to end up in a time crunch where all of your applications are due around the same time and you've waited to start on them. And the last bullet on here is just keeping up the good work. We've all heard of senioritis, but just because you started senior year doesn't mean that senioritis has to start straight off the bat. A lot of schools might request to see your fall grades from senior year as they make their decisions. So you don't want to have a situation where you've done amazing up until this point and then you started kind of falling off in fall of senior year, and that's not such a great look. Keep going strong, keep trying your best. And schools are going to be excited that you put in that effort. Some key dates for the fall. The NACAC College Fair is happening in Portland on October 8th and 9th. NACAC is the National Association for College Admission Counselors. And NACAC is a national organization. So schools from across America and even some international schools will likely be at this event. Another great way to connect with a bunch of schools and learn about schools you may have never even heard of before. I've listed Thanksgiving and winter break on there as well. Those are good times to visit colleges or even just work on applications and learn more about places. And like I said, the FAFSA document, that financial aid document, it will open in December. You can start working on it then. We don't have a date released yet. FAFSA has not made that available to the public, but it will be available soon. And then beneath that, I've listed some potential application deadlines. Every school has different deadlines, but there are some common ones that a lot of colleges use. So no matter where you're applying, it is likely that you will have at least one of these deadlines in the fall: November 1st, November 15th, November 30th, December 1st. And I've listed some schools as examples on there that use these deadlines. If you see the EA, ED, or RD, that signifies early action, early decision, or regular decision. And that relates to the time that you are applying. But you can see it depends on the school. November 15th for Willamette and Reed, those are our early deadlines, but for University of Washington, that's their only deadline. So even if you're thinking, I'm not applying early to anywhere, you still might have deadlines in the fall that you want to keep an eye on. Okay, moving on to the spring. I know it's a lot of information. Thank you for staying with me. Things that are important to consider in the spring: of course, you'll keep applying. More deadlines will likely happen then. You'll keep researching and applying for scholarships and financial aid at the schools you're interested in and outside of that. And one thing that I always like to recommend is scheduling a meeting or a connection of some sort with an admission counselor or someone from the admission office, if it's possible, once you found out where you've gotten in, because in the spring, that's when you start hearing back from all your schools. Where did I get in? Am I waitlisted somewhere? Have I been denied from somewhere? What is the situation? When you find out that you've gotten in somewhere, I recommend trying to make a connection, if possible, with someone from that office to ask questions and walk through financial aid. At Willamette, my entire January through May is meeting one-on-one with the students who I have admitted and saying, what questions do you have? Can I walk you through the financial aid process? Are there opportunities for additional scholarships? What scholarships are you bringing in? Let's see how we can make this possible for you. Not every school has that flexibility, especially bigger institutions, but there's no harm in asking and getting as much information and as many questions answered once you found out all the wonderful places that you've been accepted to. This time of year is another great time to visit campus, like I said. Now you know where you've been admitted, so you can actually go to those places and say, wow, okay, what are my options looking like? And a lot of schools will offer in-person or virtual admitted students days. So these are visit events that are just for students who have been accepted to the school. So sometimes they're more in depth. Willamette, if you come to Willamette for a regular visit, you can do a tour, you can do an information session. If you come for the admitted students day, you can get special tours of the theater tech department, of the chemistry labs. You can meet different clubs you're interested in. It's way more in depth, and a lot of schools structure it that way. So this is a good time of year to kind of dive deep if you're looking to visit schools. Again, keep up the good work. Sometimes colleges will request grades from this semester as well, especially if it's a highly competitive school. They really, really want to make sure that you're doing well still. So keep up those grades. And every student in America must make their college decision by May 1st. That is the National College Decision Deadline. And so by May 1st, you've got to sort that out, figure out what it is, and then inform your schools that you've applied to of your decision. Even if you didn't pick a school, it's great to reach out to them and say, hey, I had a great time working with you this year. Unfortunately, I've chosen a different decision. Thanks for all your help. Now we know. So that's important too. After you graduate, woohoo, toss the cap. Your high school will send your transcript to us, your official transcript that shows you've graduated, you're all set, you're ready to enroll. So Some major events happening. Spring break I've listed. Again, great opportunity to visit campuses, work on applications, work on scholarship applications. That's a good time period for that. May 1st is that big college decision deadline. Like I said, everybody's got to make their choice by that day. And then I've also listed some AP exams and your last day of senior year. It went by like that, didn't it? That's crazy. So those are good things to keep in mind. I also listed some application deadlines and examples for the spring. So once again, you might not have apps due on every one of these dates, but it's likely that you'll have some due on at least one of these dates. And there are some schools listed there that use those dates throughout the year as well. All right, that was a lot of information. I appreciate you sticking with me. I have a couple final tips to share in general as you think about starting this process. The first is to be proactive. I know right now you're about to enter summer in a month, and I'm sure it is a little frustrating to hear about how much work is ahead when you've just finished probably a pretty challenging academic year. To think that you're starting summer and there's all these tasks ahead of you, that can be daunting. But I think that proactivity, especially during the summertime and the beginning of fall, can really pay off. Senior year is a wonderful time of year. You want to celebrate with your peers. You want to have the best last year of high school that you can have. Go to homecoming, go to prom, go to senior prank day. You know what I mean? Whatever y'all do, senior spirit day, you want to experience all that. But it's harder to give yourself fully to those fun events when you've got college applications hanging over your head and you're thinking, oh no, I didn't write my essays and I haven't finished making my lists and I don't know what scholarships are available. The more work you can do on the front end, the more you'll be able to sit back, relax, and enjoy your senior year. So definitely be proactive about this stuff so you don't feel last minute stressed when you're trying to enjoy this final hurrah of your high school experience. I know I've said it a couple times now, but asking about financial aid and scholarships as early as possible, that's huge. We really want to make sure that you're in a position where you know all of the amazing opportunities that are ahead of you and you can access them. I also want to mention that you have a lot of different wonderful connections and resources at your fingertips, and being able to actually access those and reach out is key. You have wonderful college counselors or career counselors at your school, your teachers, upperclassmen that you know that have gone through this process. And then of course the admission counselors, people like me at all the schools that you're applying to. We're waiting for students to come to us with questions, to come visit, to ask us if we can connect them with other people on our campus. So use as many resources as you can to learn as much as possible and get the support you need. I have students who have reached out to me and said, I don't know if I want to go to Willamette, but I'd love tips on writing a college essay. I'm happy to have those conversations. Use those opportunities. Next, remember that this is your process. So you are the center of this. I know this is a process where you're always hearing whispers, right? Who got in where, who's applying where, what's the best school? Is my school better than their school? Why did she get in and he didn't, right? This is the conversations that we often hear. But at the end of the day, you are the only person who knows what's best for you. And every student has a different set of schools that would be great for them. So keep that in mind. Check in with yourself, check in with your gut and say, how do I feel about this? Where would I thrive most academically, socially? Where will my future be best set? Where am I going to be best suited financially so I'm not in a really tough place after I graduate? That's a personal thing, right? So keep that in mind. No matter what other people are saying, this is your process. The next bullet is pretty simple. I'm sure all your teachers have said this. Check your email. I know you're being bombarded with emails from colleges and it's overwhelming and it's frustrating, but there are some really key opportunities that are presented via email. I run our competitive scholarship program here. We send out emails every month about this, and I still have students who are coming to me 2 months after the deadline asking if they can apply. And it's so sad to have to say that they missed that opportunity when we know they've emailed them a bunch of different times. So check on your emails. There's also other cool opportunities you might miss out on if you don't. We offer a program where we're able to bring students to campus who are underrepresented in college spheres, whether they are low income or from different backgrounds that historically haven't had representation on college campuses. If they've been admitted, we can fly them here for free. But if they didn't check their email, They might not know that, right? If they're coming from out of state, that would be really sad to miss out on. What if one of the schools out of state you're considering has that type of thing? You wouldn't want to miss out on that. So check that email. Last piece, I said this a little bit earlier, take time to rest. This is a stressful process in a lot of different ways, but it's also a really exciting one. And if you take time to rest, hang out with friends, enjoy those senior year moments, enjoy the last year of your high school experience, that's important too. Don't miss out on those opportunities because you're so bogged down by the rest of this, and let yourself have those moments of peace, those moments of celebration as well, because you have made it so far and it's amazing what you've done, and you're going to do even more amazing things in the future. So celebrate that and take that time. And that's the end of the presentation. I appreciate y'all for being here, tuning in. I know it's a lot of information and I talk quickly. This is the QR code I mentioned earlier. You're welcome to scan that or just email the email address you see on the screen if you've got questions for us. I'm going to pop into the chat just to see if there's any last questions that I missed out on. If folks want to unmute and ask a question, we have a couple more minutes before our next presenter hops on. So I'm happy to do that too. But I'm going to stop sharing for a second just so I can see everybody. Any last questions, thoughts, or anything that any of our amazing counselors want to add to all that I've shared?
Well, since there's no questions in the chat yet, I would just say not just read the email, or not just read your email, but read the details of the email. Often there's instructions for what to do next, and kids come in and struggle to figure out what to do next when they get an acceptance letter or a scholarship information, and they just get a little bit, they don't know what to do. But if you read the whole email, then you might not miss anything. So read the full email. All right, looks like we have some chat questions. So, all right, I'm going to continue to just let Kaylin answer a few chat questions, and they're going to continue. I'm going to have to. We've got about another minute or two, and I'm going to be switching over to our next speaker.
Excellent. I will say just for the folks who have asked for the QR code screen again, since we're switching over to our next presenter, I'm just going to put the link, y'all, in the chat that the QR will take you to. You can just click that link, save that, and you'll have all that information. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Okay, great. I'm going to leave you on for just another minute if there's anything else, but
great. Yeah.
And who's our, Anne, are you? Oh, you're not a co-host. Never mind anymore. Sorry about that. Okay. I will go ahead and introduce Corey Kimmel from Oregon State University. I'm going to go ahead and make her a co-host. And actually, bear with me. Sorry. Okay, sorry. And okay. I'm making Corey Kimmel from Oregon State University our co-host, so she can introduce herself and share the screen for our next topic, which I believe is the college essay. So thank you, Corey, for joining us. And thank you so much, Kaylin Kappas, for that awesome presentation. That was awesome. That was really, really good. Well done.
All right. Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Everybody should be able to see that, I think. Maybe like a thumbs up. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here. As Tanya mentioned, my name is Corey Kimmel. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am the Portland Regional Admissions Advisor for OSU. But I am here today kind of with my OSU hat off, just to give some general information, tips, and tricks on how to write the college essay. Before I dive into that, though, I cannot stress enough to add more emphasis on students checking and reading their emails. We say it every year, but please, 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 students, check your emails, check your junk folders. If you have Gmail, check the promotions tab. Their emails go everywhere. So just make sure that students are checking those. And again, parents, I know you want to be in the loop, and sometimes universities will send emails to you. But as Kayla mentioned, this is the student's journey. Your students are getting ready to go off to college. They're going to be adults. And so we do anticipate them to be able to take charge of that. So with that, I'm going to dive into my actual presentation that I have. We have 30 minutes to go over this. It definitely will not take the entire time. I have time at the end for questions if you have any. But like I mentioned, just another quick introduction. I am with Oregon State right now, the Portland Regional. So I actually live off campus in the Portland area and do those visits that Kayla mentioned to high schools in the fall, sometimes in the spring. So I recruit all of Portland Metro at this point in time. So if students apply to OSU, they'll see my face, my email. I am that direct contact, always ready to help students out. But I've also worked at some other Oregon universities. So I've read quite a few essays in my time, which is why this is one of my favorite presentations to give. A little bit about some different options here. Just what is the college essay in general? I'm actually going to start on the right-hand side of the screen, but there are some different types of essays that you might see. And Tanya, is everything looking okay on the screen? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Just checking.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Making sure it's changing. Couple different types of essays on the Common App, which is one application that over 900 schools in the nation utilize. There will be an essay section. Students will fill that out, and on that, it will also tell you what school students are applying for that require the essay and which ones don't. Coalition application is just another application format. OSU doesn't use it. I don't know too much about the coalition application, but Common application is pretty common for universities across the US. So there is going to be this like personal statement, maybe main essay, depending on the college or university, or if you're applying to a really specific program, maybe a nursing program, there might be supplemental questions. Again, maybe something specific. If you are applying to an arts program, there might be some sort of supplemental documentation that you need to submit, whether it's a portfolio, your photography, anything like that. Really, these essays can kind of depend on what type of program or what university you're applying to. Everything I'm going to talk about today is a little bit more general, a little bit more broad, especially for some more public universities that are a little bit less competitive. Still, some tips and tricks in here are absolutely going to be applicable, but this is also something that we do really recommend if you have, if students have really specific questions about the requirements or what's being looked for, you can always reach out to admissions counselors. Again, like Kaylin said, reach out to us. It's our entire job. Please send us emails, give us some job security. But with that, the last little bit of essays on the right-hand side, scholarship applications. The more scholarships you apply to, the more money you can get. So I'll talk a little bit about some more tips at the end on how to do admissions versus scholarships. We'll get there. But why essays are important. Every student is unique. There is not a single student I have ever worked with that is the exact same as another one. Everybody has a different background, interests, different things that they do during the day, even personalities. And this is really the student's chance to talk about themselves and tell their story. And I know that's not easy for everybody. It actually can sometimes be really difficult to talk about yourself, but it is the best opportunity to lay everything out on the table for the admissions committees. And so these essays really should be personal and meaningful to the students. Those are definitely the ones that stand out the most when admissions advisors are reading, could be hundreds in a day, maybe 50 in a day, depends on how large the university is. And so if you really want it to mean something, it needs to mean something to the student, and they need to be genuine. They need to be coherent, really like follow a standard format of an essay. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but really this chance and why this essay is important, why we ask for it, is, again, students are unique, they're special, everybody's had their own journey. So transcripts can tell us a lot, but they can only tell us so much. So the essay, any optional statements do give us opportunities to then learn a little bit more about the student, who they are as a whole student, a whole person, in and outside of the classroom. What the college essay is not, it is not a time to just regurgitate all your accomplishments, everything you do. On the Common Application, on a lot of applications, there's the activities list. So that is where you can list what jobs you've had, community service you've done, any sort of clubs or organizations you're involved in. If you're in band, orchestra, athletics, or you are really involved in your church, that's what that activities list is for. The essay is different. That is why we have both options, especially on the Common Application. So we are not looking for you to just relist everything you've ever done. There is a spot for that already. This is going to be a little bit more focused in for that college essay. It is also not a story about someone else. I definitely understand that, sometimes students are really inspired by their parents. Maybe their parents immigrated to the US, and so they really want to get their college degree for their family. And that is amazing. And we love that inspiration and how that you have that dedication and you're excited to go to college for your family, get that degree, make a difference. But I've read really great essays about like the parents' experiences. It doesn't tell me a lot about the student. And that, again, is what the essay is for. So you can take that information and say, this was maybe my parents' experience. This is why, though, this has impacted me as a student and where I want to go from here. So as long as it comes back to the student who is writing that essay, that is the important part. So not about someone else. It can be for a little bit, but it's got to come back. It's got to come back to the student, got to come back to you, why it matters to you. Because your parents aren't going back to college, or maybe they are, that's totally cool. We definitely, they'll have their own essay to write, but for the student, it needs to be about you. In terms of an opportunity to make excuses, this one I tend to actually struggle with, like the phrasing on this PowerPoint that my organization has, just because making excuses might mean something different for different people. But there are different optional statements where students can talk about a challenge they've overcome, or give us more context for something. By no means do you want to discount any challenges or experiences you've gone through that have maybe had an impact for you. But what we really need to hear is like what you've learned from those experiences, versus, this was completely out of my control. Can I do anything else about it? Sometimes things are out of our control, but what did you do going forward? So don't make excuses, definitely take accountability, but just remember, whatever you've gone through is definitely valid. So keep that in mind. It's kind of a fine line on how you're writing that essay, if that's something that you're deciding to write about. It's also not a book report. As much as we love seeing students write something that they're passionate about, or like a research project, something they've used in a class before. I've written enough lab reports in my time. I've written enough book reports. I don't want to read another one. So please make sure, again, that it has to do with you as a student, versus giving me your research on renewable energy or a literature review of an author. Last but not least, time to try out a new writing style. I've seen some really creative ones, some that have worked and some that have not. So, if you are a poet, you want to go to school for creative writing, chances are you've probably got that a little bit more refined. If you are not, then let's stick to the general essay format. That's going to be better for everybody involved. What, though, talked kind of about the essay, what it is, what it isn't, but what makes a great essay. So it's going to be different for everybody. First and foremost, focus topic. A focus for your essay. What are you trying to say? The Common Application, which I've mentioned, there are 7 prompts that students get to pick from. One is even topic of choice. So really, the options are endless on what students can choose to write about. But once you have that topic stick with it. And with that topic or that prompt that you've picked, please make sure to answer every part of the prompt. That is kind of number one thing that we are looking for is, can you follow directions? That is truly, the essay can sometimes be as simple as that. I've included a little screenshot on this slide for you, just so you can see an example of one of the common application prompts that students can submit. And so this just gives a good example of the multiple questions that you might need to answer. First part is just describe this topic idea that makes you lose track of all time. Like what really interests you? Great. Address that, talk about why it's interesting. That's the next part. And then who you turn to, or are you looking at the internet, YouTube, TikTok nowadays, who knows? But how are you learning more about it? What drives you to keep learning? There's always kind of those next steps past just what are you interested in? So there's always going to be multiple questions, and just make sure you're answering every part of the prompt that you pick. That is an extremely important part of your essay. And sometimes it's almost like these are written this way. These extra questions can help you organize your essay so that you have this kind of like beginning, middle, end, that it tracks, it makes sense. Please don't jump around all over the place. If it's hard to follow, that's going to be a little bit of a concern for us, especially if it maybe correlates to some lower grades in English courses. Again, we're looking at a lot of things together, at least for universities that do a holistic review. So just make sure you're taking the time to organize, structure, make sure it has a flow and everything makes sense. In addition, making sure, we've talked about this already, just this personal tone, we want to know that it comes from you. We want you to shine through in this essay. So really, again, write about what you want to write about. And then really, really important, grammar, proper spelling, formatting. That being said, kind of another little asterisk. Sometimes students submit their essay on their phones. We know that sometimes autofix can happen, different like weird spelling errors or weird grammatical things on your phone, autocorrect. So if it's not perfect, that's okay. But if there's anything glaring, if it really doesn't make sense, that's really where you're going to want to make sure that you're nailing that down. So what do you write about? This can be really, really tricky, and we definitely don't have time in the session to like sit and do like a full brainstorming activity together. But for any like students that are on the call right now, I'm going to just kind of list out a bunch of options for you in possible different categories. And if something really like jumps out at you, jot it down. Keep it in your mind. I was someone that wrote 3 different versions of my college essay, 3 completely different essays before I settled on one. So, if there's a couple, try to pay attention to a few of those. But starting with just some brainstorming ideas, what makes you you? Again, this is supposed to be personal. It's supposed to be about you, have you shine through. So, how do you view yourself? How do other people view you? What makes you unique? What makes you special? Where do you come from? What's your family background? Again, we talked about maybe like, did your parents immigrate to the US? How has that shaped you? Are you multicultural? Do you have 2 different backgrounds that sometimes clash, and that's a little tricky for you? Or your interests, you are really into sciences, or you have a fascination with music, or what are you really good at? There's a ton of options. The one thing that I've highlighted on this slide, what are you comfortable sharing? I think that is absolutely key and really, really important. Sometimes something that may be really, really personal to you that is important isn't something you want a random stranger reading, and that's okay. This is, again, all about you as a student. So if you're uncomfortable sharing it, you don't have to. And so that's absolutely key, really important thing to remember. I did note on one of these bullets here, interests. I think one of my all-time favorites that stood out to me, we have students that have interests all over the place, but I think there's one I've read and I've never read again. The student wrote about their interest in taxidermy. So sometimes those really stick out. I also had another student, for their talent, was a really great yo-yoer. So, sometimes you have these really niche aspects to you. those can be really fun things to write about if that's something you're really excited to share. But again, what you want to share. Some other ideas on what you could write about. We've kind of talked about obstacles and challenges a little bit. Maybe it's your physical and mental health, or you've just been diagnosed with ADHD or dyslexia. Those are something you want to talk about. You're a person who has autism, or you've changed schools 5 times, and that's been really hard to just feel solid and safe. And that's really impacted your grades. Your family has really struggled with finances. You lost someone due to COVID. I talked about, again, those multiple questions. So what we're really looking for is like, how did this affect you? What did you learn? How did you move forward? Some additional parts to those there. Strengths, successes, accomplishments. This can kind of go a little bit with those obstacles and challenges. How did you overcome it? You can really talk about that a little bit. But this strength or success could be just something really simple, really personal to you. It does not have to be the most like extraordinary experience you've ever had or anybody's ever had. We know you're all still in high school. We're not expecting you to have like saved the world at this point. So, if it's something that's really meant a lot to you, you were really struggling in math and you had C's all year and you finally got that A on an exam, that's great. That's still a huge success for you. So if that's something you want to talk about, want to share in some sort of accomplishment format, that's a great option as well. Moving on, goals, dreams, task commitment. If you had a goal that you accomplished, how did you get there? Did someone help you out with it? That if it took you years and years and years, that can show us that you're really dedicated, like 4 years to get a college degree. So some of those different abilities are going to also translate to your ability to be successful at college. Or if you want to be a neurosurgeon and this is why you want to go to this school, or why you want to study psychology or biochemistry, you can also write about some of those things in your essays. Just a reminder though, if you're applying through the Common Application, because it is one essay that every school that you're applying to receives, please avoid naming specific colleges and universities. This last year, I read a really, really great essay about how excited the student was to go to the University of Ohio. So just make sure that if you are applying through the Common Application, you are using generalizations, but if it is a university-specific application, then by all means talk about how excited you are to go to Cal Poly or Willamette, whatever school you're looking at. So with that, some do's and don'ts. We've talked about some of them, but just to give you some nice lists, if you are a list person, much like I am. Do list. Know your essay will be read. We do read them. And in my office, 2 people read every essay. We did actually just last week get an essay where someone put the website like editing filler font, all that Latin just in for their essay. We did notice it was not a legitimate essay. So just know it will be read and start early. I know the summer's coming up. You should have fun. You should relax. But if you have a lot of things going on your senior year, you're really involved, you're taking a ton of AP or IB courses, maybe start trying to like at least brainstorm a little bit this summer when you have some more downtime. Again, like I mentioned, I wrote a ton of different drafts my senior year, and it might take you a while to find the one that feels like the right fit. So if you know you're not a strong writer, the earlier you start, maybe the better it is going to be for you. Really, again, keep it personal, keep it specific, keep it focused. That focus is going to be really important. You don't want to lose us as we're reading it. And again, in bold, you do not have to share or relive any trauma at all. That is not our goal of an application. Sometimes that context can be really helpful, but you do not have to go in depth. Or if that's something you don't want to write about on your essay, but maybe you still want some sort of consideration for that event in your life, you can let us know. If you feel more comfortable telling someone individually, like for OSU, I can make notes on an application, but please, please, please do not relive something if you are not ready to do so. We don't want this to be any more traumatic than this process can sometimes be. Review word limits. Previously, when OSU had a different essay format, if students went over the limit, we stopped reading where that limit was. So you could have a great conclusion. We would have no idea if your essay was too long. So make sure you are sticking to those word limits. Edit, proofread. As I mentioned, you got to make sure that you're not naming the wrong university or having some really intense typo or mistake. Sometimes they're funny. Give us a good little chuckle, but just make sure that everything you're writing does make sense and is cohesive and comprehensive. For the don'ts. Mentioned this already. Don't write what you think we want to hear. I promise there's nothing specific. There's nothing specific in mind. You want it to be about you, what matters to you. Again, this is all student-centered. This is your journey going to college. I'm not looking for anything specific, just that you're following directions. So there's nothing we're looking for. Just make sure you're answering that prompt and writing about what you want to write about. Please make sure that the language you're using is not extremely cynical, vague, or offensive. That sometimes can be a little worrying for us. So just make sure, and again, too, if this is about you, if it's about something you're excited to write about, we should be able to feel that through that essay. Talked about this earlier. Don't rewrite your resume. It's what that activities list is for. Don't submit without another editor. I am definitely someone that hated writing. I hated having people read my writing. I still hate having people read my writing. But if you are like that, just one person that you trust. If you're not quite there yet, at least read it out loud. Because sometimes when you're just skimming, reading in your head, your brain knows what you meant to write, but that might not be what's actually on the paper. So reading out loud can really help slow your brain down, and you can catch maybe some typos or some funky sentences that you have in your essay. So very least, read it out loud. Try to get one other person to read it, proofread it, get someone to edit. If you are at Westview and Tanya, great resources. If you're at Southridge, you've got Chris, you've got Amy, you've got some really, really great people there to also help you out. So just make sure you're using your resources, not just yourself. And some final tips: submit on time. Kaylin just talked about some dates and deadlines. That is extremely important, especially if schools are going to have any sort of wait list, just because there's no guarantee. So just make sure you're starting early enough so that you can submit your essays on time. Be consistent throughout your application. If there is a difference in writing, your activities list, or your essay is really, really great, but you had some kind of lower grades in English, that's going to raise some flags for us. We know sometimes other people write essays for students. We are smarter than I think some people give us credit for. So we can tell if you didn't write it. So just make sure that you are, as a student, putting in that effort and that it's coming from you. My final tip, and I kind of mentioned this at the very, very beginning, if you have one foundational essay, you can just tweak it for any additional scholarship application you're applying for. Really, a lot of our colleges, scholarships, we're all kind of asking for the same things. And so if you can just get one essay that you feel really great about that really represents you, then all you have to do when you get a new prompt, tweak it a little bit. Maybe it was about this accomplishment. You talked about building your car for your first time. But then it's what's something that maybe pushed you to learn something new? And you can be oh, well, I built this car, but I had to learn X, Y, and Z. So a little bit easier to kind of tweak. And then you're not starting from scratch. And it makes that process, especially applying for scholarships, a lot easier. It can take a long time to apply for scholarships, but it is one of the only things that will literally pay off that you do. So it's definitely worth that time and investment. And having that foundational essay can make it a lot easier, a lot smoother of a process. What I wish someone told me I really put this on here in case you didn't pick up on it. I'm not a strong writer. I was a science major. Writing in high school, I took all like honors AP classes of everything except English. Like writing was not my strong suit. And so I really panicked about this essay. And I really wish someone just told me it's going to be okay. Like this is one essay. Just breathe. Like it's not going to be the end of the world. It doesn't have to be the best piece of work you've ever put together. As long as it's authentic, you're answering every part of the question. Like I promise everything is going to be fine. You do not need to make yourself like sick trying to put together this essay. Not that I did, but I just, again, reminder, it's going to be fine. Just it's one essay. With that, I do have a question in the chat. So perfect timing because it's time for question and answer. So I have a couple already. Yay. Where'd it go? It jumped up on me. Okay. How much like weight or percentage is given for essay while making a decision by the college? That is going to depend on the university or maybe like a specific program. OSU, for example, Oregon State, for our admissions, we look at everything together. And one thing is not necessarily more important than the other. We can use essays though to maybe fill in some gaps on transcripts. You know, maybe there's one semester that doesn't match the rest of them, but the essay talked about the student was experiencing houselessness for the first time. And then the second they found a place to live, their grades went right back up. So it's really for us to kind of put those puzzle pieces together. That being said, though, kind of another example, Oregon State's Honors College, they do have some GPA requirements, but the essay is really heavily weighed in their review. So it is going to kind of depend on the college, the university, or even within universities, if students are applying for different programs. So hopefully that helped answer that a little bit. How would the application for international students differ versus people who are submitting their essay via regular admissions? That is a great question, and that is going to completely depend on the university that students are applying for. For OSU, we have an entirely different international admissions office. And sometimes too, students might be international, they might be domestic, they might be undocumented student that would still go through our admissions application. So if you are possibly confused on like what your student type would be, international, non-international, please reach out to admissions counselors and we can help you figure out what the right application for you is and then what the different requirements will be. That is going to completely depend on the college and the university for sure. Do all colleges require students to submit an essay? The answer is no, not everybody does. It's very common, but not everybody requires an essay. Do you prefer essays that are more about goals or interests or more about like previous goals and achievements? I'm going to remind you that I said, we're not looking for anything specific. So it really depends on the student, what their possible goals are, what they've accomplished, what prompt they decide to write. It really is about how the student writes that essay versus what prompt they're picking. I know I'm kind of getting close on time here. I have 1 minute, but I read one of my favorite essays I ever wrote or ever read from a student. They wrote about how it's so funny. They wrote about how they learned a really big lesson to always be prepared because they didn't have a plunger when they needed one. So I just like, it truly can be about anything, but that student's personality and like storytelling really shone through. So we're not looking for anything specific. It's just about how students are answering those prompts. Will there be a deadline for essay submission? Or yes, deadline for essay submission, like different colleges. Also depends. So for OSU, you submit your essay with your admissions application. The Honors College for OSU, I talked about kind of their different review. They have the same dates and deadlines, but you can submit that essay at a later date, just as long as it's still by our main deadline. So if you have questions about essay submission, application, those dates and deadlines, again, please reach out to your admissions advisor. For OSU, you are in the Portland area and you're interested in Oregon State, that is me. My email is here on the bottom. I think also possibly in like the event invite, it might be listed. I'm not really sure looking at Ann and Tanya, but you can also find me online. I'm everywhere. But please let me know if you have any questions. I am at my 7:30, but I'll hang out in the chat for a little bit so that we can let our next presenter present.
Yeah, okay, great. And I'll just follow up. So thank you so much, Corey. That was awesome. So many questions too. So many people, what about this? What about that? I see a lot of people asking a lot of questions about goal setting and are you looking for the effort? You know, truly what they're really looking for is your child. They want to know about your child. You know, everybody's different and unique, and they're going to be able to see in that application all the amazing things about the student that's applying, and either whether their grades are good or whether their involvement in activities is good. And so what they just really want to know, get to know the uniqueness about kids. They write about all different things, and they can follow a prompt, and in that prompt they can talk about all these amazing things they did. But the problem with that is they've already listed all the amazing things that they did in their application. And so it's really a good opportunity for the student to tell a story, to make the reader laugh, or to make the reader feel something in their heart. And so that's where, I mean, I recommend always having kids get a language arts teacher involved to give them some tips or guidance or to proofread. And that's why we really recommend that you guys jump on it in the summertime to get started. I mean, you can Google, hey, you can read some essays over the summer on, you can watch, you know, YouTube videos how to do it, but you know, don't like spend your every waking minute all for the essay. It really, they want to get to know your child, and it shouldn't mean 3 months of constant work. So anyway, I thank you, Corey. I am gonna transfer the participants and get Ashley Monroe on here. And Ashley, I'm gonna actually make you a co-host. So that you can share your screen as well and introduce yourself. So, bye, Corey. And Corey, you might need to stop screen share, I think.
I thought I did.
Okay, let me withdraw you as co-host.
Yes, that is totally fine. I was gonna answer some more chat questions.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Are you able to if you're not co-host?
Ooh, good question.
I think you are. Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
I can enter.
Oh, there we go. Hello.
While you're doing that, if you'd like. My name is Ashley Monroe, and I'm the Director of Financial Aid at University of Alaska Fairbanks. And presenting with me today is Diane Woodward, who is a Financial Aid Advisor at University of Alaska Fairbanks. So she's going to share a little bit about financial aid and talk about the FAFSA, and then we'll save time at the end for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And so I made you co-host so you can share your screen. Do you need me to make?
Oh, no, I can share my screen.
Okay,
and
great.
then
Perfect.
Diane, just let me know when you are ready to go.
Okay. And do you want me to, oh yeah, perfect. Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Perfect. Ashley, do you want me to just say next slide?
Sure, that's great.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, hi everyone. My name is Cyan. I am a financial aid advisor up here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Today I'm just here to give you a rundown of financial aid basics, some things that you should know when you're considering financial aid, and just run-of-the-mill financial aid stuff. So we will go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. Thank you. So when we talk about financial aid, I kind of like to break it up into 3 categories. So the first kind we have is federal financial aid, and federal financial aid is from the federal government, and you apply via the FAFSA, which is an acronym, stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And so if you are interested in using federal financial aid, you would apply via the FAFSA. And typically the FAFSA is going to be primarily need-based awards, meaning it's going to be based on the income that you report on your FAFSA. So for example, you may be eligible for a Pell Grant, or you may be eligible for loans. It just depends on the tax information that you put in there. The second type is going to be state financial aid. So that's going to be from your state. And so the applications depend on the different awards that you may have, depending on what state you're in. And sometimes state financial aid can be need-based, and it is also merit-based awards. So for example, here in Alaska, we have what's called the Alaska Performance Scholarship. And this is an award for high school students graduating with certain requirements once they're done with high school. And so this would be a merit-based award, or based on the what the high schooler did while they were in school. The third one is private financial aid. So this is kind of a catch-all category. So private financial aid can come from multiple sources, and the applications may vary depending on what award it is, but they can be need-based and merit-based awards. And I will touch on it just a little bit, but some examples could be veteran affairs assistance. It could be a scholarship from your job. It could be an alternative loan from Sally Mae, anything like that. And just a quick note, your financial aid will likely be a combination of any or all of the above. So you can pick and choose and put it together, and you've got your financial aid package. So FAFSA. So as I said, it's an acronym. It stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And you apply by going to the website studentaid.gov. When you get there, you'll make an account. The student themselves will make an account. And the student will have to enter their social security number, their email, their phone number. And then along with that, the parent will also have to make an account as well, because on the student's application, they're going to be using the parent's tax information. So in order to allow that, basically the parent has to make an account to sign off and say, yes, it's okay for my kid to use my tax stuff. We're good to go. So tax information is required. And then on the FAFSA, you can list up to 10 schools, and each school will be notified of your interests. And you can even go in and change the schools if you decide to. But that way your application can be sent to multiple places. And then the quick note at the bottom, some scholarships require FAFSA, even if you only qualify for loans. So even if you don't think you'll qualify for something, it's always good to do it, because you never know what kind of scholarships may be available. Speaking of scholarships, scholarships can be found in a variety of places. Some examples are if you have a job, or if your parents or the parent or guardian has a job. Sometimes they'll have scholarships for the dependents of their employees, local businesses in your area, private banks, sports organizations, national organizations, or a university. For example, UAF, we have what's called the Nanak Pledge Scholarship. That's for students who have a certain GPA, and we promise to give them a certain amount based on the information they provide us when they apply. So different scholarships can be used for tuition, fees, room, board, meal plan, etc. And then some scholarships are renewable, some are one-time payments. And so a quick note is that some scholarships are only for tuition. Or some scholarships are only for housing. Some scholarships are only a textbook scholarship. So just make sure you check with whoever's giving you the scholarship. Make sure you know where that money is supposed to be going. Most scholarships will allow you to apply it to whatever you'd like, but it's good to be on the safe side for sure. So an offer and award letter. So let's say you've done your FAFSA, you did all the tax stuff, you did it, you submitted it, you're good to go. Great, you're not done yet. All of the schools that you listed on your FAFSA will be sent your FAFSA application. And when they get your FAFSA application, they'll look at your application and they'll say, okay, based on this information, we can give you this amount of money for the school year. And that's where the offer or the award letter comes in. So the award letter will list what financial aid is available to the student. And it will typically include federal FAFSA financial aid, and it may also include state and or university-based awards. So for example, if you decided to apply to UAF, you may have FAFSA, so maybe you'll have a Pell Grant and a loan, but again, you may also have the NANUC Pledge, which is a separate award that the university can offer you that's solely based coming from UAF. And so the quick note at the bottom here is every award letter will be different. Every university can offer you a different award. The only thing that will be the same is what your federal or what your FAFSA can offer you, because that is a baseline based on your federal and your state income taxes. The only difference will be what the individual university can offer you. So how much is it? So I've got two things here. I've got a cost of attendance, which you might have heard of, and I've got a student bill. So let's break this down a little bit. So a cost of attendance, or COA, as you may see it, is an estimate of how much tuition and fees may be. Okay, so these estimated amounts are an average based on a student attending full-time, 15 plus credits, and living on campus. And it's not reflective of the actual amount that a student will pay. So for example, if you receive an award letter here at UAF, your cost of attendance is going to be around $20,000, give or take. If you're, full-time and taking, you're in housing and things like that, that's an estimate. Your student bill, on the other hand, is going to be directly related to what classes you take, what room you choose to live in, what meal plan you choose. That's going to be your actual bill that you owe to the university, okay? So the student bill is the exact amount that a student owes. And the amounts are directly based on the classes you're enrolled in and the choices in housing. So it is reflective of the actual amount that a student will pay. So the cost of attendance is an estimate. Your student bill, which most universities will post to their online portal, that's how much you actually owe the university. Cost of attendance is great for estimating and kind of budgeting and planning things out. Your student bill is going to be what you actually owe. So the last question that I feel like we get a lot is how much will be covered? And here is a step-by-step guide on how you can figure that out, or at least my recommendation. So the first thing you want to do is you want to register for your classes and sign up for your housing and meal plan, okay? Here at UAF, we have an automated system that automatically updates it so you can see your bill. Lots of other universities also do that. As soon as you register for classes, as soon as you sign up for housing, those costs will be posted directly to your student account, okay? Once you register and you sign up for classes, check your student bill and the charges that are listed on your student account online, okay? So as you're dropping classes, if you're changing your housing, check your student bill. It should tell you exactly how much you're gonna owe semester to semester, okay? From there, you'll compare the charges of each semester with your award package that you got with your award letter. And you can see how much your semester is costing you versus how much you were awarded for the year. And then from there, you can kind of see, well, I am missing about a couple grand versus, oh, I'm completely covered. I should be getting money back. And the last thing I always recommend is contacting your university financial aid office if you have questions. Most financial aid offices are very helpful and happy to help as well. And so if you're seeing something that's weird on your account or you don't know what the charges are or anything like that, just contact them. They can be able to walk you through it. And the last quick note is that most universities split your financial aid in half between fall and spring. So whatever, and that's if a university is working on a semester term. Some schools don't do semesters, but for the ones that do, they'll split it between fall and spring. So whatever you're awarded on your award package should be split in half when you're looking at your budget, okay? So for example, if you get an award package and it says, oh, you've been granted $16,000 for the year, that means you're getting $8,000 in the fall and $8,000 in the spring. And you should consider that when you're looking at how much you need to cover or come out of pocket, and when you're registering for classes and choosing housing. Okay. So the last thing that I have here is where to find scholarships. Everyone's like scholarships, scholarships, scholarships. And then everyone's like, well, where do I even find them? I got you, okay? The first place, some websites listed here. Scholly is a good one. Scholarship America is one that we recommend. Scholarships.com. Sally Mae has a scholarship database now for unawarded scholarships. So you can make an account and check out awards that haven't been given out yet. And even the College Board. Lots of students know the College Board from SAT, ACT testing or AP testing. They also have scholarships available for students. And then some physical locations that you can go is your university or the specific department you're studying under. So for example, if you're an engineering student, you may want to go to the engineering department and ask them if they have any scholarships available for their students or anything like that. You can check your high school guidance counselor or whoever helps you with career services in your high school. They should have a list of scholarships as well. And lastly, your library. Check out your library in the reference section. They do have scholarships listed there as well. Summertime's the perfect time to apply for scholarships right before school. So these are some great resources for that. And that
Awesome. Oh,
yep, nope, that's it.
thank you, Cyan. Is that it?
That's what I got for us today. Kind of a crash course.
All right, Chris, I'll let you pop in.
Well, I do see some questions. Are we doing questions, or is someone else going to speak for a moment?
Oh, go ahead and answer questions. Yes, absolutely, please.
Great, thank you. So some questions in the chat include changes on the income. So for the FAFSA, when you're filling it out for the I have to think in the future, 2024, 2025 year, which I believe is when most of you will be entering college the fall of 2024. Your FAFSA is going to ask for the 2022 tax information. So tax information that you just filed is what you're going to be providing on the FAFSA for the fall of 2024. This information may not be current anymore. You may have experienced a job loss. You may have experienced retirement. There could have been, something not so great that happens to your family. So keep in mind that each financial aid office has an opportunity to apply for what we call professional judgment or special circumstances reviews. This allows a financial aid advisor like Cyan to be working with you one-on-one, collect updated tax information or current pay stubs or expenses that show or bills that show extreme medical expenses, anything like that, anything above and beyond what a typical family may be experiencing. And that allows you and the financial aid office to update your FAFSA to more accurately reflect your current situation. So for example, a year from now, something happened, you made less money in 2023 than you did in 2022. A financial aid officer may be able to use your 2023 taxes on your FAFSA. You won't be able to make that change. You'd have to go directly through a financial aid office, and that can be different at every school. So you would want to talk to the schools once you start to narrow down your list, talk to those schools to make those adjustments. But it can make a significant difference in what your federal financial aid package would be. The other one was a question in regards to some costs. So the exact question is, I was checking on a college in Oregon. The total estimated fee was around $30,000 per term, including tuition, fees, books and supplies, room. What is the term duration, 1 semester or 1 year? Most likely it's going to be a semester. Usually we refer in financial aid offices to terms as a payment period, which would either be a semester or trimester, depending upon the school. But you would want to check with the school to be sure, because they could use slightly different terminology. But typically a term is one set of classes, so a semester or a trimester. And then Kristen asked if colleges have payment plans. And yes, most colleges do have some sort of payment plan. Again, that's going to be different at every school. Some start payment plans as early as June or July before the student enrolls. So you could be making kind of prepayments to get ahead. Some payment plans last the same amount as the student is in class. So they would last one term or one semester, while other payment plans could last a full year and they get lumped together. So I'd recommend checking with your school that you're interested in. Once you start that registration process, you may be eligible to apply for a payment plan right away.